my friends, I'm Rick, and this is your seat at the table. And little Missy's sitting there. She's actually sleeping in the cat carrier. She's being very behaved. For a stray cat, she is so very well behaved. It's just, she's been in this room going on well over a month now, and we don't let her out to mix with the other cats for a number of reasons. But she has yet to actually try to make a bolt for the door. I mean, she'll come up right at you at the door, and she'll run around under your feet, and she'll want to trip you. But she's curious about what's going on the other side of the door, and she'll peek out there. But she has never tried to crush the threshold up to this point, and which is great. I mean, we really don't want to be stressing her out and chasing her around the house and trying to get her back. If she was there's such a behavior levels you have to at certain points you say we can't cope with that level, and then you just let them go and they're on their own and hope for the best, and is what it is. But meanwhile, she's been real well. We're still trying to get her a slot for the ARL's trap neuter release program, but they have not had anything going on. Anyway, so we're still in cycle 16, and we're going to follow up on the Xeno Scouts making an attempt to gain viable samples that Kepit Follies virus. So it's just straight up, was it successful? Now the group, they're tried individuals. They have a leader, so they get like a plus. They get a plus 10. They get a plus 9% to their roll, and then it's just from there. It's just a yes, no, or maybe. So where am I? Where am I at? Where am I at? Damn it! We want that one, but we want that chart there. I want that little chart there down here on the bottom. So. 48 plus 10, so 58%. A soft yes. So they got a sample. Which is good. While getting that sample, though, are they spotted by any locals? And I have to add that +5 modifier to that roll. And technically, if they were using stealth attempts and things like this, I could apply some negative modifiers. But it's hard for me to justify them doing that. They're in biohazard suits, and they got to look pretty freaking weird. And they're not designed to be camoed, and they're not really. I mean, they're in a remote area of the planet. So if in this case, if they run into locals, it's going to be the locals running into them. Kind of thing, because they're not zipping around and flying through the air and stuff, etc. So we'll just stick with the +5 modifier. So 81 plus 5 is 86, and 86 is a solid yes. A solid yes. Solid yes. Plus 20. Jesus. Okay, so. So do the local stumble across the camp. 75. Even without a modifier, it's a yes. All right. At 10%. Oh yeah. See, now we could figure out how many there are. I'd have to go and look up. Generally, I would have to go. You go into the OP4 section, and you go through OP4, and you're looking for irregular units, and that would include just random yahoos. But sometimes it's just simpler. I have currently on this operation, I have 2 Xeno Scouts and 1 5-person squad from my protector services for protection, so that's 7. And then there's the pilot and co-pilot of the shuttle, so there's 9 people present, even though it's just likely going to be 1 or 2, probably 1 Xeno Scout and a couple of the protectors who are out there protecting that individual while the others are on their shuttle doing their shuttle-y stuff. So I'm going to just be fair about it. We're going to just flip a D4. I think that's a reasonable number. So we'll flip a d4, and we get 1. So 1 individual. Okay, 1 Thokal. Alright. Alright, so this is the local panic and flee, and I would get a plus 10 from the previous roll. So 41 plus 10 is 51. 51 is hesitant, yes. Which is okay. This is a 0 modifier, but if they had been a no and they hung around, then we'd have to proceed with then what do we do? Do they meet? Don't they attempt to make contact? Do we attempt to make contact? Do they get aggressive? Whatever. So in this case, does the local panic and flee? Yes. Now, there's always a rabbit hole with this game. There's always endless possibilities. So what do we do here? What do we do that we have this frickin' situation? So what? I could have my protector, one or both of them, haul off in pursuit and try to detain this local. If I were to successfully detain them, then what? Am I going to just keep them with me until keep them at the with the Xeno with the operation until the operation is ready to leave, and then leave them behind? Or do we actually, maybe we want to bring them with us as, I don't know, a sample, so we can get even more research done on them? And then that begs another question: how do you propose to do that? Now, these people are living on a moon or a swamp planet. They have some kind of virus, something in the environment, in the air, that's extremely lethal to everybody outside the damn atmosphere, that are not native to the planet or are not previously inoculated against this virus. So I would have to then isolate this individual in a biosuit and the Howie suit, and then keep them in that Howie suit the entire time that they're in transit back to the capital, and figure out how to do that without them realistically dying from starve or something, or because there's no real cabins. It's a shuttle. It's not a passenger liner. There's no real cabin, so there's no place to stuff this individual and isolate them from the rest of the crew. So you're gonna have to put them in a suit, and there's risks involved. And then of course, then I would need to set up some kind of lab. It would have to be specifically stipulated that it has the ability to handle a hostile virus, which means it needs to have Tech 3 or greater technology, which means nothing I have at the house in my R&D facility would be ready as a hot lab to be dealing with this. It's bad enough to be dealing with this sampled virus that can go into like a very specialized contained medical device or research devices. That's not the same thing as having to deal with a living breathing individual. So then there's alright, I could also choose to have my one or both of my protectors follow this individual. A, to make sure that they're safe and that they get home safely. B, to make sure that they don't immediately turn around and run into a much bigger group of their fellows and turn them into a rampaging mob that then might charge back up the hill to where the quote aliens are and deal with us, make an attempt to whatever. Then we would have a combat situation. Or we follow this individual, and this individual goes to, I don't know, a nearby cabin or something. Maybe they're here on a hunting, or out here in the sticks hunting, or they're I don't know, they're on the run from the local law. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. Another possibility would have been if the individual would have stuck around, if the event role would have said that the local decided to not run, then a discourse, a potential negotiation, or at least a verbal discourse could then begin between one key individual in my party and this particular local. And so we establish maybe some 21 questions, get a little bit more information about the world, it's, the social situation, what they call themselves, maybe what their name of the world is, and then they go to the list is just, I'm just saying, the list is quite extensive for possibilities and opportunities for going and pursuing that line. So we have to make them decisions. What are we going to do? What are we not going to do, etc. So in this case, I'm good. We'll let them go, and then I can return my Xeno Scouts to Fairwind, and then resupply my shuttle, of course, and submit the virus to my R&D lab, so I can start making the attempts to research some kind of antidote or a counter to the virus. So meanwhile. I'm looking at that Fred Dodge situation where I want the customs with backup to quote raid the smuggler warship sitting at the port in an attempt to seize or gain the agrements. So first, I need to set up who's going to do it and what resources I'm going to allot to that. In addition to that, I know what I now know is I need some casual observations, so I'm going to send this as yet unnamed agent to observe this event and ask me some questions. So we know this is a sloop. That is a Tech 2 hulled warship. Now, because it's a pirate warship, we can take some liberties here when it comes to configuring the design. It's a warship, so it needs to be armed. It's going to have at least a naval grade weapon of some kind. It's also going to have a minimum of 1 gun mount, potentially 4. Now, I personally would never, every section of a ship hull is allowed to hold 2 gun mounts for gun mount grade weapons, and I've always believed that you should maximize that at every opportunity. So by default, my sloop would have 4 gun mounts mounted on it. Questions then would be, where are they located, and what are they equipped with? Now, location, weapons. This brings us to a couple conundrums. All right, first up, why do we care where the weapon, the gun mounts are mounted? Well, if we're going to send troops, people, agents, and protectors to go confront this warship, the naval grade weapon is not the weapon that we have to worry about, because the captain is not going to be able to fire a naval grade weapon system, with the exception of a point defense weapon. So if this thing has a point defense gun, which is it's the smallest naval grade weapon available, it's an oversized autocannon when it comes to people. So it can still be depressed and shoot. So we would definitely want to know if it has that and where it's located. It's like the gun mounts. So each ship is designed by its hulls defined by its class defined by the hull size. And what I mean by hull size is how many sections are there, or how many decks are there, however you choose to break it down. So in a sloop, you have either two decks, or 2 sections of a bow and an aft, or a port and a starboard. But you decide when you design the ship what axis you're going to define. So if the section, one half of it's quite plausible. I've seen it happen in combat where you can blow the ass end off of a warship, and the warship still has weapons in the nose, and they're capable of shooting. and they can shoot. Sometimes they only get to shoot one more time because that's all they had in their batteries, and if their engines are gone or missing, they can't recharge them. Or if they're autocannons, perhaps the autocannons continue fire until their ammo bay is out. As long as that section's functioning, the ballistic weapons can function, and so it's quite plausible to blow a ship in half and have the ship, at least one half of it still in the fight, and the other half. Another consideration is, why does it matter section-wise? Well, on a personal scale, because we have three different scales for the game. We have personal scale, one-on-one between people and things of that nature. And then we have vehicle scale, and so we can have people versus vehicles, and we can have vehicles versus ships. But generally, people do not directly engage ship scale. So we have people scale, we have vehicle scale, and we have ship scale. Ship scale means most ship naval weapons will not engage or target individual people on the tarmac next to the ship. And the range factors change too. So if my naval gun has a short range of 3 hexes, 1, 2, 3, at ship range, well, that's 3 times the scale at personnel range. So instead of it being three hexes for point blank, it's actually 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if my ship's weapon base arc is sitting right here where my finger's at, this is the range it has for close range at personal scale. So if this person is standing here, that naval weapon potentially could eradicate that person. But but our rules say naval grade weapons can't target that small of a. Now, if there was a truck sitting here, that naval grade weapon could engage and destroy the truck and catch the guy standing next to the truck in the process. But this person is just outside. So if I have a point defense gun, that point defense gun can open fire on this individual because it has the ability to shoot at vehicle grade and smaller. And it can shoot at a ship. It can also shoot at a vehicle, and in theory, it can shoot at the spot where your guy's standing. So he's not targeting the person; he's just targeting the hex that he's in. But if that person was one hex closer to our ship, this is our point blank range, then anything inside this range is no longer viable. So this weapon, this naval grade weapon, cannot target anything within this range, which means the people running around the ground are pretty much safe from naval grade weapons, with the exception of the point defense gun. Gun mount weapons. That's the whole purpose of gun mount weapons in the first place, is anti-personnel, anti-vehicle weapons. Gun mounts are designed to target starfighters and vehicles on the ground and people who are running up on your ship. And so in that venue, the gun mounts are then mounted 2 per section. So once again, if we have a lower deck and the upper deck, then we would have 2 gun mounts in the lower deck and 2 gun mounts in the upper deck. And that would also mean that if I have 2 gun mounts up here and they have an arc fire because the ship's in the way, there is a dead zone that my operatives can operate successfully in without fear from being fired upon by a gun mount in that position. This means that if the ship has 2 gun mounts on the bottom, on the keel, and 2 on the sail, the 2 on the sail are basically not going to be in the fight. And now they could fight it. If I have reinforcements rushing up from a distance, they can be fair game. And the same with the naval cannon if it's far enough away. You can't hit the guy standing there, but you can hit the building that's the guy standing in front of with a naval weapon, because that's the scale. So in this case, the gun mounts matter, and then it matters what they're mounting, what kind of weapons do they have, because some weapons they're purely anti-personnel weapons, and others are vehicle grade weapons. So once again, I can have a vehicle grade weapon that does concentrate, a frickin' damn gauze rifle, for example. It's going to put a nice big chunk of depleted steel, uranium the size of a golf ball or a baseball or in some cases a bowling ball through the side of that damn tank, or into the side of that tank anyway. But if it was going to shoot into a group of people, well, it's going to shoot at the hex they're in because they're going to damage one individual or two individuals or divided. So they're yeah, I'm getting off on a tangent. That shit you'd have to go and figure. So we want to know where the gun mounts are. And so can my agent determine where the gun mounts are? See where gun mounts are. And they should be able to see all of them. I mean, you just walk around and check them, but I mean, I'm just doing it for sake of. All right, so 41, yeah, there we go, 41 is a hard maybe. So yeah, we're gonna say so yes. The reason I did that is because, well, we want to know, but I wanted to get a modifier for that because, so +5. And we know our agent's going to be tried, so we're going to get a +6 base for, so that gives us a +11. And type of weapons mounted. Can we see the type of weapons mounted? +11. So 73 and 11 gives us 84. 84 is solid yes. +20. So technically it'd be a +25 +31. So what we now know is we know that the sloop has gun mounts, and we also now know generally where they are, and we have we have an idea of what they're mounting. Now that's important because we can make the argument if my agent was unable to determine what they're mounting, because then those gun mounts might just look like little blisters on the side of the ship. They don't have to be, you know, ball turrets from a B-17. They could be, or the quad guns from the Millennium Falcon. Although they could be, if that's how you choose to set it up. The gun mount in a Tech 1 gun mount has four hard points for mounting stuff, and that determines how many and what type of weapons it can mount. So when we look at vehicle grade weapons and support weapons, you know, that we have, a light infantry machine gun, for example, would only take one mount. So in theory, you could mount four light machine guns in that gun mount. The downside to that is that's going to burn through a lot of ammunition pretty fast. It also has the limitations that the light machine gun provides at the scale that it may be utilized at. So as an anti-infantry suppression system for keeping people away from the side of your ship on the ground, that'd be a great system. But for fighting starfighters in space, where you really need all the range you can get, that's probably not a good choice. So what you would ideally do is one gun mount might have a certain loadout, and the other gun mount might have a different loadout. So one might be anti-personnel, anti-vehicle loadout, with the other one being aerospace and atmospheric fighter loadout kind of stuff. The other limitations are access. So like right now, my house has not produced or purchased any vehicle grade weapons of any sort. So if I wanted to put rocket pods on motorbikes, I don't have the rocket pods to do it. And my motorbikes don't have the hardware to mount it. And a motorbike is actually limited to a single soft point. So in theory, I could put a mini rocket launcher or mini missile launcher on the motorbikes if I wanted to. But I have to have them, and that means shifting my production in my current factory A. I'm right now producing, I think I'm... Howie suits, either AR2, I think it's assault rifles, because I did a couple rounds of Howie suits. Now I want a couple rounds of Kalashnikovs. I want some AR-15s or AK-47s or M16s, whatever the hell you want to call them. But that's what I'm producing right now. And then I can choose to look at Tech 1 weapons. So I might be able to produce light machine guns, rocket pods, things like this, and then from there I determine what can I mount in my mount. So like my existing ships, Both my mining ships and both of my scouts have gun mounts in them. They came as part of the package. What I don't know is what weapons are in them, and they're all going to be Tech 1 weapons. That's just because I have yet to determine that. And when the time comes, I don't need to roll. I can just choose. I can choose this is what I'm going to have as a loadout, and then I make my notes on my ship control sheet, and that's what they have. And it later, if I get better systems, I purchase better systems. You upgrade them, obviously, and what have you. So it's important to know where these. If I'm going to bring in troops on the ground and try to force an issue with this freighter or this warship, I'm going to want to know where the fire arcs of these things are, because it may determine whether or not I bring a lot more people or nobody. Because one individual might be able to achieve more through negotiation than anything can be done with force. Especially the fact that I don't have a whole lot of force to multiply my factors by. So that's a considerable consideration. The other thing to take in point, and I started on this a bit ago, was that we know the warship is a sloop, but the sloop, because it's a pirate ship, needs to have at least a moderate amount of cargo capacity. That means internal space being and tonnage, more importantly, mass push that the ship's sublight and star drives can handle, has to fall in certain categories. That means if you want to expand the cargo capacity of your warship, something has to go. So what generally do you lose? What do you remove to gain that space? So you have to find a balance. It's just like the warship. So a traditional pirate warship is likely to be a little less firepower-wise, a little less gunned than the military equivalent. So the Imperial Navy's equivalent of a sloop is going to be full-on sloop firepower. But that may not be the variant, because inside the book I have on blueprints, the blueprint guide for creating books or creating ships, within the categories for sloop, for example, there's just the traditional standard sloop, which has a mixture of cabins and so you can potentially carry a platoon of troops or a ambassador and the ambassador's party and a moderate amount of cargo. So it's probably a standard sloop would have probably a 100-ton cargo bay, which is the smallest cargo bay, and it would have 2 hardpoint connectors, each one capable of transporting up to another 100 tons. So the mass push and the drives will be rated to carry 450 tons of cargo plus the weight of the vessel itself and any internal components aside from the cargo bays. And the way that you might mitigate that to gain more firepower is we eliminate the cargo bay altogether, which I think is foolhardy, because you're really reducing the opportunities for carrying spares and supplies, if nothing else. But you can choose. Let's say your sloop's not going to operate too far from your bases, then you choose to leave the cargo bay out. And if you choose, you can supplement that with an additional life support and a crew deck or a barracks deck, so you can carry several platoons of troops on board. If you're looking for pure warship, we're back to we want to maximize the shield capacity that we can mount in this thing. We want to maximize the weapon capacity that it can carry, and that means reducing things like cargo capacity. And so we might remove one hardpoint connector. We might remove both of them, which means the ship cannot be transported through space unless it's in another ship's cargo or landing bay. Or we might retain one hardpoint connector, but designate that it will not carry cargo. It's not going to be cargo friendly, and that means the HPC is just existing as a connection piece to another ship. So at that point, we're not worried about it exceeding the capacity, because we've established that you're never going to hook another ship to carry a ship. It's just the other way around. So it's possible, right? So in a pirate ship, we have to find a balance between extra cargo capacity. So the odds are probably really good that it actually should have 1 ton cargo bay that's standard, or maybe a 150-ton cargo bay, which would be a Tech 2 version, but which would still be within the Tech 2 framework of the sloop itself. Or we have the 100-ton cargo bay and one of the HPCs rated for cargo, or we have both HPCs rated for cargo and no internal cargo bay. Now what this means here is we're either carrying cargo pods, which have the advantage of being dropped. You can drop them before you go into a combat situation and ideally go back and retrieve them, or you can continue to carry them through. The other possibility is that you can have weapons pods, which will increase the amount of firepower and weapon capacity that your sloop could carry. You put two weapons pods on a sloop and you've got the firepower of a light cruiser. I mean, I'm just pointing out the obvious advantages to all the Omni technology that goes with this sort of stuff. Meanwhile, the ship's going to have a balance. So it's also going to have decent crew quarters, because pirates, as a rule, insist on better standard of living than a regular Navy crew might. So they're going to want more custom bunks. They're not going to want a barracks in there. They want individual cabins and stuff, which means higher life support, a more advanced life support system potentially, and a better crew deck, or even a passenger deck installed as well. And then of course the so on and so forth. Well, do we need to carry vehicles? Do we need to carry landing equipment, that kind of stuff? So it just goes down the road. So now what I've established is we have gun mounts, and now I can go ahead and I will roll randomly for the weapon loadout, because I don't want to decide what's in there. I will roll using my House Lord's modifier, and it'll be all likely be Tech 1 stuff anyway, because that's just what's going to roll up in that scenario. And then it will determine do I have a couple machine guns or light lasers or rocket pods and missile launchers, or a combination of all those together. Because like I said, it's possible to have 4 different weapon systems in the same gun mount based on the hard points. So you can have 4 different small weapon systems that could either be 4 the same and they all concentrate, for doubling up on damage, or they cover a different range. So you might have a couple lasers and a couple of rocket pods. So they let you do different stuff. It's just, what are you plugging in and how you're going to play it. And so on my next, probably before cycle 17, I'll set this up and run this through and figure out how it plays out, because I'm interested to know. And it would be nice to be able to, at the minimum, acquire those damn agromechs, because we know they're being delivered by criminals, and we know this. And now we can, question is how can we turn that and take advantage of that. The other event that I had that has not yet been addressed was I had this event roll that said that a signal was spotted, and it's potentially going to a guild outpost. So that's what so I need to send one of my ships to scout, to follow the trace down this signal leading to where this guild outpost is, and establish exactly where it is, who it is, and what they're doing there. Is it in my home system on a planet or moon I know about? Is it on an existing system I already explored and I know about? Or is it an entirely new system in my region that I do not know about? And if it is in any scenario, if for example this guild outpost is over there on that planet with the virus and all them lower technological human or people living there, at that point I may need to go to the guild and go, what's up? You need to leave, and by Imperium law you will leave, or we will if I have to get the Star Marshals and the military in here to do it, to force you off, we will do that. But we don't want to go that route. Or what are you doing there, and how do I take advantage of that? What kind of kickback or payments or resources or development can I get out of whatever it is you're doing over there? Because there's a good possibility that it's just going down that rabbit hole. If this guild outpost is on or adjacent to that one planet full of people, then they may have very well already researched their antidote to the virus, and at that point the house just needs to have the guild give them the damn virus or the antidote, and or more importantly, give them the blueprints for manufacturing the antidote, and that way the house has total access and control over that as well. And then the house has to sit down and negotiate with the guild. How big is this guild? If it's luckily we're talking because of the House Lord modifier, it's not going to be a big guild. If it was a big galactic spanning guild, you might be in trouble. But if it's a small localized guild that's fairly, like I said, fairly small, this is a potential resource for the house, or something to exploit. And then, how does it affect the people on that planet? Are the guild directly trading with them? Is the guild in violation of Imperium law in some way? Remember, we in Stellar Frontiers, we do not have the Prime Directive. So what's right and what's wrong is a case by case and individual by individual situation in a lot of ways, right? So I need to figure. I need to look at my ships and see what I got available, and see if I can track it down, because that involves sending, let's say, one of my scouts back to the Fairwind system, and then we roll a sensor roll to determine if it picks up that signal that the planet's system communication network, the SCN, picked up, and then if I can pick it up, can we follow it? And then if we're successful at following it, then we go to we proceed to the end of the end of the signal's location, and then go from there. At that point, we look up the opposing forces chapter, and we roll up a damn guild, and we create a guild, and we determine what it is, what they're doing, who they are, and why, and in basic parameters, and then we proceed. At that point, we have to send somebody to talk to them, or we invite them to send somebody to the house. And first, would it be my minister of one minister or another, or maybe more than one, having contacts with the local guild rep in charge of that place, and so on and so forth, and then proceed from there. So anyway, that's what that's all about. In my look at things. It's a possible scenario. So we've taken a little bit of a deep dive. There's still a couple more things to do for cycle 16, I think, and then we'll go from there. We had a lot of repetitive stuff, and that's one of the things I get, because it's the nature of these games. It's a resource builder in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of potential prep and a lot of potential redundant stuff, and I try to avoid the redundancies when I can, but sometimes it's necessary. It's like some of these event chains. Each cycle is a link in a chain. So if I were to go back and look at Fred Dodge from the beginning, and I wrote his stuff down, in a story format, this is what we've achieved, and we look at the story arc as it progresses, we can actually see where we are now and how this is developed. We now know that there's a plan. The house settled, and they brought some punks with them. They brought some people who are going to be criminals, and that's what their old intentions were when they got here, or they just couldn't blend in. The trip out here was enough to screw with their head or whatever. Now we know that they're being led by a lady, a human female, and we know approximately she's 125 years old, 126 years old. We know she's on the poor side of the spectrum when it comes to her social standing, and we also know that there's not more than a handful of people in her thug group, because it's not really a criminal organization of any significance yet. We also know that they had managed to steal or acquire 6 agromechs from who knows where, considering we don't have it's not like we have a dealership on the planet selling the damn things, which that's just is what it is. So that leads to, where did they get them? Who did they take them from? Why hasn't the owners come forward? Well, that's because we haven't had an event that would link into it. But wouldn't that be interesting if our next event roll for the planet was able to be intermingled with this? But from all this, we've discovered we have thugs. We've discovered the leaders. We've discovered where their hideout is, more or less. We've also discovered they have contacts with off-world. If nothing else, they just recently made contacts with a smuggler. Or these are connected to the pirates and stuff in some way. We haven't determined. We don't. It'd be nice to know where the the agromechs could have been owned by a private individual that they could not have brought them with them on the colony vessel, because the colony, that would have been an asset that would have been immediately applied if that was there. So it's not a given. They did, so somehow they acquired these agromechs after the colony was settled, or they found them. The thugs might have found them, which means there could be something out there on the planet somewhere, not too far off, like what's left of an agri concern, for example. So maybe they found them, or they stole them from one of these passing vessels that were here, and I've had quite a few come through. But yet, and since they stole them, and then the captain of the vessel didn't know it was missing till after the fact, or something. So, or the third possibility is that my agri-platinum was holding out, that they actually possessed these things and had not put them in play yet for one reason or another, in part because we didn't know they had them. Now that we do, we could also potentially go to the agri-platinum and goes, hey Joe, what's up? Anything else you got stashed away we ought to know about, that we should be utilizing, or is this something you just recently bought? Because maybe the platinum just bought them and they're embarrassed to acknowledge they got stolen, or perhaps they don't even know they got stolen just yet. I mean, the possibilities. Where do you go with it? What do you want to do with it? How are you going to pursue it? So anyway, this is me, and that's Missy over there, and you're you, and it is October 7th, I believe. Is this the 7th? Till next time, you guys have yourself a great weekend.